Khalil, wherever you talk about illegal immigration and the border, there is the conversation about the Mexican drug cartel. More worries that they're using social media to recruit human smugglers. Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, a Democrat from Virginia, just introducing a bill to crack down on that. Congresswoman, these cartels offer thousands of dollars a day for drivers to smuggle people and drugs into the U.S. What has your team found in terms of social media being used even more than ever?
Well, Adrienne, thank you for highlighting this issue. And I come at this issue before becoming a lawmaker. I worked for CIA tracking transnational criminal organizations. And before that, I was a federal agent who worked local narcotics and money laundering cases on the ground. And what we know is that transnational criminal organizations are using social media platforms to recruit people to do their work. In this gig economy, people will put out ads asking for somebody to drive from point A to point B. And in the vast majority of these circumstances, the people are tricked. They think that they're helping someone out. They think that they're making some money on the side. And it is very unclear in the way that these transnational criminal organizations target people. Is very unclear to the people what it is that they're engaging in. And so what we want to do, and this is bipartisan, bicameral legislation, is ensure that DHS can take action, and social media companies have a role in this. So we want DHS to set up a portal by which social media companies that are endeavoring to try and track these posts down and take them down when they realize what they are, that they can actually submit them via a portal to DHS to help jumpstart those investigations.
What would your bill do specifically to combat the use of social media when it seems as though it's this overwhelming issue? Anyone can lie about their age on these platforms, and the cartel can present itself in a way that, again, as you mentioned, the gig economy looks like a Craigslist posting.
That's right. That's right. Looks like a Craigslist posting, looks like a, hey, can you do me a favor and I'll help you out? You know, and certainly there is plenty of legal commerce, people paying people to move their cars from point A to point B, et cetera. So what our legislation would do, it would require DHS to set up a portal so that there can be a partnership between social media companies that really are endeavoring to recognize the potential threats that exist here, report that to DHS, and then from there, federal investigations can begin. We have seen that social media companies have been pretty forward-leaning, have been good about detecting and taking down posts when they realize what it is, but there's no mechanism by which they can really push those on aggressively to the hands of law enforcement.
Why is this so hard to tackle? I mean, I remember being a baby reporter like 15 years ago and researching the cartel and seeing how dangerous it is and was, and how teenage American children were being recruited by these cartels to be their runners. And then if something were to happen where another cartel group would retaliate, they became the target of assassinations. I mean, it's just ungodly to think about the things that they're doing on the border. And now you're presenting this, and I'm so grateful, and I'm sure a lot of Americans are. But why has it taken so long for us to see any noticeable change of policy?
Well, the challenge really exists in that the cartels, the transnational criminal organizations trafficking in drugs and trafficking in guns and trafficking in people, they are changing their tactics so quickly. I do a lot of work combating fentanyl coming into the United States, and one of the challenges there is fentanyl by virtue of its potency. Small amounts can be very potent, very deadly, and far easier to transit over the border. So at times the drugs that they're smuggling or the items that they're smuggling have evolved, so too have their tactics, their concealment efforts, the way they recruit people. And as they are evolving, so too must our enforcement processes. And that's where Congress can come in and must come in to take action to make sure that Homeland Security has everything they need, that the folks working the border have everything they need to evolve with the threat, as these transnational criminal organizations certainly continue to evolve their tactics of recruiting people to support their efforts and their tactics of transporting people, drugs, or guns back and forth across the border.
I know that there is a group of Republicans who would like to designate the cartel in Mexico as a terrorist organization. But what is your take on how Homeland Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has presented his case as the leader there over this massive problem. He won't call it a crisis. In fact, he's saying that at times he was not aware of some of the things that have been newsworthy over months and years that the cartel has been doing illegally. What do you think about how he's handling everything?
It's a crisis. Anytime we see thousands of Americans dying month by month by month because of fentanyl overdoses, there's a crisis. When we continue to have an immigration system that's just not working, that hasn't been updated in years, that isn't meeting the needs of our communities, our employers, our people, it's a crisis. When we continue to see vulnerable people who can fall prey to transnational criminal organizations who endeavor to traffic them on false hope and false promises because our system isn't working, it's a crisis. Certainly, it's a crisis that the administration needs to contend with, but it's also a crisis that Congress has to contend with. The reality is that there are steps we can take forward as it relates to combating transnational criminal organization, recognizing the threat that they pose to our communities and to our national security, and as a state destabilizing actor throughout Mexico and Central America. There are things that we can do legislatively. Certainly, I've been working on those as it relates to fentanyl trafficking, as it relates to ensuring that Border Patrol and DHS have what they need, as it relates to ensuring that social media groups can take, or companies can take action directly to law enforcement. But we also need Congress to take aggressive action on, ensuring funding for border security and updating our immigration process.
Right. That would be wonderful.
Isn't working, and Congress needs to take responsibility as well.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's bipartisan acknowledgement of that need.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are saying, hear, hear, and grateful to hear that. Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, thanks for your time. We appreciate you being here on Morning in America.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I noticed that word she used, acknowledgement. Not necessarily action yet, but acknowledgement.
No, she's taking action.
She is,
this particular presentation. I mean, I think that she wants to do something that some other people are too afraid of. Thank goodness.